Hello, everyone. This is me. I'm a product manager at Coinbase. I work with my engineering partner running a team to handle with crypto data services. So in our daily work, we responsible for retrieving, accessing, processing on-chain data, and then generate insight out from it. This allows us to support different product lines across Coinbase and also different functions. Today, I'm presenting this open source project as a personal contributor, independent from Coinbase. So we all see the title. It says metadata, right? So what actually does it mean? Metadata refers to additional information we associate with addresses, protocols, or activities on chain. I guess many of you have been dealing with blockchain analytics, and we all know that on-chain data itself is not enough. We need some information off-chain, such as metadata, such that we can actually generate additional insights. So metadata actually can come from various sources. It could be ground truth. Ground truth actually means that you have verified the evidence that you know this metadata is accurate given one address. It could be inferenced. For example, you have an algorithm that you can group the addresses together into one single entity. It could be third party, right? Like you look at Etherscan, or you script it from Twitter. It could come from regulation, right? I mean, if any of you deal with AML, you might work with, like, for example, you know the word like OFAC, right? That's the government periodically releases a list of addresses that's marked as illicit. By this definition, I think we can realize there's a wide range of categories for metadata, right? You can have like L1, mixer, miner, Oracle, DEX, DAO, you name it. And it can be also characteristics based. For example, we might want to label an address as laundering or as privacy, right? Or as like lending, because this address is involved in those activities. So if I stop here, any one of you ever used the metadata in any of your projects? If you want to raise your hand. Awesome, cool. Okay. So I do see that maybe some of you haven't really used the metadata in the past. So I wanted to describe why metadata really matters. So I'm here only providing three scenarios, but it's really not exclusive. I wanted to use them to explain why this is really important. One scenario is that imagine that you are a protocol or a funding team, and you wanted to do airdrops. In order to better provide the appropriate token incentives, the token allocation, you might want to do more analysis on the user profile. So having the metadata actually can give you more insight, so you can better plan your airdrops. The second scenario is a trading signal. So imagine you are a trader, right? You wanted to collect as many signals as possible from the market. One signal, or say one trend you might observe already, is that actually the inflows and outflows for all the major exchanges are huge. So actually, on a daily basis, it's regularly outpaced more than 100 million US dollar worth of US dollars. So you might want to come up with a signal saying, okay, is there a way I can monitor for all the major exchanges? What are the inflows and outflows for the different crypto assets? And in order to do that, you actually wanted to have a good idea, give an address whether it belongs to any certain exchanges. The third scenario refers to investigation. Let's say that you are a security investigator, right? An exploit just happened. So you wanted to follow the fund, understanding which entity actually involved in this, and those labels actually will help. Sometimes, even without understanding the specific entity, even understanding whether the address is a service will really help, right? If it's a service, then maybe there's no meaning for you to track down anymore. But if it's a privately owned, maybe you wanted to try to get more insight. So having the metadata is so important. Many people, right, many of the teams who wanted to generate insights have some labels in-house, but usually don't have enough label to do the full analysis. Therefore, we look for the service providers. However, with the existing service provider, as a user, we actually found some pain points. First of all, is that this actually, we don't have trust on the data quality. So if I give you an address and you tell me it belongs to, I don't know, let's say Binance, should I trust it? Why should I trust this? Right? Second of all, is that actually we don't also see a standard on the definition of all those metadata. So, for example, if your address involves in like marketing promotion or advertising, you know, depends on which provider you go. It might say ads, advertising, advertisement. Very hard for you to run the query. Sometimes you see one provider says this is DAX, the other say this is exchange. Okay, what's the definition of exchange? Does it include centralized exchange? The third one is that because we actually don't have a go-to place, we usually need to integrate with the multiple service providers. Sometimes it's because that we don't have the trust on any provider. Sometimes it's because we don't have enough coverage, which I will talk about later, what does coverage actually means. The last one is that what I noticed that nowadays the service provider is very Web 2 style, right? So given any specific set of data labels, usually you have like one centralized service to provide it. If it's down, then good luck, right? You need to wait for it. Most importantly, if you wanted to do a lot of analysis and you wanted to integrate with the multiple service provider, it's pretty expensive. And there's a reason, right? Because generating high quality label is a very expensive process. As a user, we have observed those pain points. And if we zoom out, we actually also observed that the current service is also not very efficient for the industry. The reason is that we actually observed that across different service providers, they actually try to label the addresses in silo. So collectively, there's a lot of duplicative efforts. Especially for some service provider, it really matters for them to have a good coverage on the trading volume, which means that, you know, if I use your service and on a given a random transaction, how likely are you able to provide me a label on the entity involved so I can make some sense out of this transaction? And in order to have a good coverage on the trading volume, it really matters that we need to mark those bigger players, right, like exchanges. So you can imagine all the service provider are marking the same set of entities over and over, right? And in order to generate those metadata, it is actually pretty expensive to set up. And however, collectively, if we actually try to look at all the services, you know, put all the labels all together, my sense is that we actually still cannot keep up with the fast-growing addresses that's been, you know, happening on a daily basis. The new address here is defined as if this address, you know, exists, and it has been used at least once, right, in one transaction. The second pain point we noticed that for the industry is that we have a lot of stale data, which means that when there's key events, right, like exploits, or when there's a high volume activity period, let's say bull run, we wanted to have fresh the metadata, but many times it's very hard for us to keep up, and people actually don't have a place to go to get to the most updated metadata. There's no such a go-to place. The final one I want to call out is that also not only we don't have a go-to place to consume the data, if you ask everyone who have some like data in-house, they actually also don't know where to go to contribute, right? If I actually did like a random interview on some different teams, different names pop up, right? So observing so many pain points for the user and also for the inefficiency for the industry, we, a bunch of engineers, blockchain researchers, and also product managers get together propose a new project, an open source project called Microscope. The vision of Microscope is that we wanted to provide the metadata universally accessible and understandable. In order to achieve that, we defined 5 goals. The first goal is to standardize the taxonomy across the industry, right? So we can do a better analysis and query. The second one is that we wanted to provide transparent source and a provider, which means that if you ask us, hey, given this address or network, what's the label you have? we not only provide you the label, but also that we provide you what's the source and who's the provider. Source means that does this label come from ground truth, or is this influenced, or is this coming from like the government regulation? Provider means that is this coming from Coinbase or Masari, right, etc. The third goal is that we wanted to have decentralized service host, which means that for any partner joined this project, they can host the data sets that we have collected so far. And we don't need to rely on one centralized service to make sure it runs 24/7. The fourth one is that we wanted to make it the go-to place that the people can distribute the labels they have and also consume the labels when they wanted to. Finally, we wanted to make it free for the community for a fair access, right? Ideally, that it doesn't have to be that expensive for us to quickly check or give an address what kind of labels we have across the industry. To achieve that, we actually have different phases of milestones. Currently, we're focusing on iterating on the metadata taxonomy definitions. I will show the number, but we roughly have more than 95 categories of labels defined already. And we're now working with a couple of 3 to 4 partners to make sure that we have a streamlined process to onboard a new partner. Currently, it's a very heavy process because we need to look at the taxonomy definitions on each side, discuss whether we need to consolidate or come up with a pipeline to adapt. We need to review the data quality. We actually need to make sure that we can have a mechanism continuously merge all the labels from all the partners joined. So currently it's a very heavy process and we haven't been able to open to everyone. In the mid-run, we wanted to make sure we're ready to make it open for the community, which means that we wanted to explore how to set up a reputation score for anyone who contribute the label. We also wanted to develop a mechanism we're able to accept the feedback. If anyone say this label is not correct, how do we validate, right? How do we respond? Having those mechanisms set up, we will open it for the community so everyone can access. In addition, we also wanted to make it available not only off-chain but also on-chain, such that for protocols can also access it through the Oracle providers. So what do we have so far? As we see, we have 4 partners: Coinbase, Masari, Qiantu, and Go Plus, together contributing to this project so far. We have collected more than 220 million addresses labeled. Addresses here is defined as address given per network, right? So basically, if you have the same address but it's on Ethereum and Polygon, we actually count it as 2 addresses. The reason, again, is that not all the address we can propagate the labels entirely always, right? Some address is externally owned, we can propagate, but if it's a contract address, we actually need to, we need to discuss further. We have 33 networks covered, and we have defined more than 95 categories of a label. And currently, our estimation is that more than 60 billion worth of US dollar of assets have been covered by our labels. So if you look at our address coverage, we actually have a very strong concentration on BTC, and followed by EVM chains, 17%, and the rest is no more than 1%. So there's a lot we can do, right? So welcome everyone. If you wanna contribute, please reach out to us. And this one wanted to give kudos to everyone who contributed. The orders and of the organization and also of the names are not in any particular order. Thank you for all the engineers, product managers, blockchain researchers, from different time zones being able to work this out and having the achievement so far. Finally, is that please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We actually set up our own website, microscopeprotocol.xyz. Please check out that what kind of categories we have, and also our white paper. And also, if you have any feedback and if you wanted to do partnership, please reach out to feedback.microscope@gmail.com. Also, one disclaimer to call out is that we've been very cautious about not to include personal data, right? So that is why actually we're now working with some a limited scope of our partners. And when we develop a mechanism that we're able to filter out and making sure we don't include those sensitive information across all the contribution from the community, we will open it for for a wider access. So that's what I have for today. Thank you. Yep. Bye.